Founders, welcome back to the 0 to 5,000 podcast, where we obsess over the convergence of human potential and business results. Today, our hosts Drew McClure and Jordan Mitchell have another insightful conversation for you. So let's jump right in.
All right, founders, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are joined by Dom Farnan. Dom is a pioneering force in high-growth environments for over 2 decades. Her leadership transcends conventional boundaries, infusing entrepreneurship with advocacy in all her endeavors. From talent acquisition for industry giants like Snapchat to fostering joy in virtual meetings, Dom's actions are characterized by profound intentionality. Through her agency, DoseConnect, founded in 2011, Dom revolutionized the talent industry, employing mindfulness, generosity, and compassion to forge meaningful connections. As a conscious leader, Dom challenges corporate norms, rejecting the notion that success must come at the expense of inner peace. Her journey from surviving workaholism to thriving exemplifies her belief in harmonizing personal fulfillment with professional achievement. Under her guidance, DoseConnect achieved remarkable growth, earning a spot on the Inc. 5000 list in 2022 amidst the pandemic's challenges. Dom's ethos, inspired by her grandmother's uplifting spirit, fosters an environment free from corporate toxicity, where success stems from genuine connection and empowerment. Join us as we delve into Dom's transformative journey and the profound impact of her conscious leadership. So Dom, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So just in our brief chat ahead of time, I'm excited because it feels like we get to enter into your story in a really pivotal kind of restart and rebirth for you. But to give us some context, let's back up a little bit. Where did you start in this kind of professional journey? How did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in recruiting when I was 17 and I graduated high school early. So it's really the only thing I've ever done in my professional history. Prior to that, I was a kid and I worked at a pizza place. So
Wow.
it was an interesting time starting my career so young. I mean, I met my first boss after I finished an internship, and they didn't really have a need for me in marketing anymore. And they're like, talk to HR, he'll tell you what to do. And so he invited me to be a recruiter on his growing team. And then the next thing you know, I was helping hire sales reps for a building products company. I was the youngest in the group. I had amazing, more experienced mentors that really taught me everything. And I was a sponge. So I sat in like a bullpen call center type of environment where I just heard interviews all day, every day. I enjoyed that. I spent maybe 5 years there. I followed that boss around a couple of different places. And then early in my career, I knew I didn't want to just work in one industry. So I started consulting. I work for a vendor of ours, Iris Libby. She's still one of my mentors and like amazing, amazing human. And through that experience, I started growing my own consulting work. I had my own clients. And so in 2011, I put on paper my consultancy, DoseConnect, which is a combination of my grandmother's first name, Dorothy, and her middle name, Constance. So it all kind
Cool.
of worked out. I was like, oh, grandma's like looking out for me because it's her name combined. And then it's just been such a powerful force of energy ever since. And then I ran, my solo business for a long time. And at the end of 2018, I decided I wanted to build a team around my approach to recruiting, which is not some profound secret sauce approach. You just care about people and you're considerate and kind, and you go the extra mile to be intentional about how you show up. Initially, I hired a team. I had maybe 30 people on my team the first year and a half, and then things really started taking off. So we scaled up to 100 and something people globally. We were on
Wow.
Inc. for the last couple of years. And it was a wild ride. And that brings me to today, where now I'm solo and I've let go of the majority of my team, helped them find other jobs. Many of them started their own companies together and still work together. Many of them still reach out and would love to come back and work when we're getting busy again. But yeah, for the longest time, I was solo and then created this company over the last few years.
Yes. Okay. I love this. We always get to hear the highs and lows in this, but this is kind of a unique one. I think especially because the industry you're in. I resonate a lot with that. I run my own coaching and consulting practice with my business partner. And I know that we took a big hit last year when the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed,
Yeah.
and the ripple waves of it. For us, it was that at that time we had a lot of clients who were either in tech or were marketing agencies serving tech.
Yeah.
And so we became disposable pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Was it a similar catalyst for you? Was it that plus a few other things last year? Like what started that?
Yeah. I think I noticed it early indicator on a timeline was probably May of 2022 when we had some bigger tech clients that were signing deals with us to add big teams of our recruiters. That contributed to our growth. We would land these huge 1 or 2 year contracts with a big tech company, and then they'd want 20 recruiters like tomorrow. And the crazy thing is they would pay anything. They would just like
Hmm.
show me anybody and put these people on my team because we have thousands of open roles. But we started to see a shift in May of 22. It didn't really take a nosedive until probably October of 22. One of our biggest tech clients that had told us for many months that they were going to renew with us decided they weren't going to renew after a year. I had about 20 people on that team that in overnight I had no work for because I
Mm.
wasn't looking for other work because they were locked in on this engagement thinking we were going to continue for the next year. So that began this slow trickle of a lot of those scenarios where it was like, oh, we thought we were going to hire, but we're not. And we're pausing, we're reassessing. The other half of our client base was startups, and many of them still continue to hire, but thought that they could do it without external recruiting help. And so I'm
Yeah.
still kind of seeing that. Definitely seeing a bit of a turn in the last few months where I think a little bit of work is coming back, which seems good, but it's also a challenge because it's an election year. So
Yeah. It's so interesting. I have my parents came into town a few weeks ago, and I just had a chance that I don't get often to sit and talk with my dad about things that I barely was aware of as a kid. He was a business owner. He ran a commercial roofing company that is actually very similar. That's where we're making connections to my industry. Like he had a team of people, but he's like, in my mind, I saw when that project ended, and I
mhm.
had to fill the pipeline with the next project to keep that team
Yeah,
busy to put them on work. And he said it worked for 30 years until in 2008 when the
yeah,
market crashed. And he's like, it wasn't just my business. There just was no business, very few business out there for us to go get.
yeah,
And he was just describing the emotional journey that he kind of went through from being super successful. Then all of a sudden, him going, where am I going to get work? How do I keep these people busy?
yeah.
And it feels maybe similar to what you were going through. So, on the emotional side of that, what was that ride kind of like this last year?
Yeah, it was brutal. It was probably the hardest year that I've had in my entire life, which says a lot because in 2021, we lost our house to a hurricane. This house that I'm sitting in now, we rebuilt. And
Wow.
I thought that was the hardest year of my life. So I think what I've learned in my journey is it doesn't matter, where you are, life is life and life keeps
Yeah.
lifing. No matter if you've reached capacity, right? Like you have to be able to really hone your mindset, and I think that's the most impactful thing that I've done for myself in my journey as an entrepreneur has been in my healing work and really working on my mindset and perspective on things because last year was really hard, and I probably spent the first half of the year experimenting, trying new product lines, trying new services, trying new pricing, like anything to keep us afloat and slowly like unwinding the teams. And it was sad because a lot of the team just wanted to stay together. We all took pay cuts initially. And then it was like, that's not even enough. Like we're just burning cash at this point. And so I felt the best thing to do was probably at the end of June, just wrap most of the team up after I had burned a fair amount of money and just said, okay, we got to just like reset and see what happens. And the challenge was I thought work would come back by July. I was like, oh, it can't
You're
last
right.
this. And last year, for many industries, I heard from people I had hired and people that were laid off that I had hired, how tough last year was across the board, not just in recruiting. Recruiting is a good indicator of how things looked, but even for other functions and other roles and everything.
I totally relate to that. Um, I'm curious, there's the obvious emotional challenge of just like my security is being challenged right now, financial security.
Yep.
But then there's all the stuff that's kind of woven in there. Like my identity is wrapped up in this
Yeah.
story and this success. And was that part of it too? I mean, It's got to
Yeah.
be.
Oh, 100%. I sat around last summer. So I decided to give myself a little bit of grace. And in July, I took the pressure off and said, I'm not working. I've been through the ringer. I'm going to just walk my son to junior lifeguards every day this month. That was my goal. And that's what I did. And probably it was the best summer I think we've ever had together. So I'm really grateful for that. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to start being busy again. Like, what can I do? Continuing to network, doing all the events, doing all the things that we do, keeping in touch with my alumni and people who were on my team that would come back in a heartbeat. And it was hard because I felt an identity crisis in, if I'm not leading a big team, can I still call myself a CEO? Am I a CEO? Was I good? Actually, am I a failure because my company is not around? Like, it was
Yeah.
very layered. And, I probably had kind of hit a head around Christmas time where I was thinking about going into the new year. How am I going to show up? What's the work I want to focus on and call in? Um, and am I going to have to recruit again? And so I am recruiting again. I have recruiting clients that I own and work with end to end, but it took me a couple weeks to really re-engage with that, part of my life. I thought I had kind of put that to rest and scaled a team of recruiters. So to actually take the work back and do it again, I honestly didn't think I could do it. I was like, maybe I forgot. What if I suck? Like, I've trained people to do this now and I haven't done it. And like, I had all this imposter syndrome on a literal thing that I had trained hundreds of people to do.
Yeah.
Um, the good news is it was a good confidence boost because I got back into recruiting, and within a week I was like, oh, I'm in my groove. Boom, I know what I'm doing. I feel good. I feel confident again. And then I continue to get a little bit more work and a little bit more work. And I felt like magnetic and excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, finally, after this whole thing that totally wrecked my confidence for the last however 18 to 24 months, I feel really good about where I'm at, and I'm feeling like a little smidge of confidence again after like
Yeah.
18 months of nothing.
How do you think about yourself differently than you did before? That's maybe more resilient or helpful.
Yeah, I think my identity is not tied to this external title. I think
Mm,
we talked about this before. Like, for me, leadership doesn't have these boundaries of like, you are in this job at this title and this level, and then you're a leader. Like, I've always been a leader. I've led in my life, in my family, in work, in my friend group. And so to me, it was just kind of reframing that I don't need external validation or some heavy weighted title in the world of LinkedIn and on the internet
yeah.
to give me confidence or validate my ability and self-worth. I really did a lot of like self-worth work, and finding my own inner confidence.
Yeah. There's a phrase that this reminds me of that I think I heard it from Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They've co-written several books together.
Mhm.
But he uses the phrase flexible identity.
Mhm.
And I really like that phrase that he said a lot of health and growth comes from embracing a more flexible identity that I'm not
Totally.
just that or this, but I can grow, I can change, I can be a little of this, I can be a little of that. And it sounds similar to this.
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, I think earlier when we were chatting before recording, I like to do so many things. And so it's hard for me to just do one thing and only identify as one type of leader or type of person. Like, I am very multi-passionate. I'm
Hmm.
a coach. I'm a facilitator of training. I'm a healer in my own way. Like, I do a lot of things. And so I like flexible identity because then you don't have to just get so stuck. And I think in the corporate world, people get really stuck on their titles. I
Mm.
notice that now too when I'm interviewing people, and we'll post a role at a certain level and the candidate will say, "Well, can it be X title instead of this title?" I'm like, are you really asking me this? You really care about that?"
Yeah.
And I guess early in your career maybe yes, you do care. And if you're in a corporate job, then yeah, but I'm like thinking of myself going, I was this and now I'm just another recruiter. It's the same thing I felt like when I was a recruiter that went to a CEO. I was like, well, I
Yeah.
for 20 straight years just called myself a recruiter. Now I'm a CEO. All right, big deal, whatever. And now the reverse is happening. So,
What's the difference in being in the game and assuming the game is the same everywhere and then you get out of a certain game and you realize certain things don't matter outside of that context. Like if you're in a very traditional corporate role, you might care about that title because you're thinking how that might look on the resume for the next thing
Yeah.
you want to get. If we're all playing the same rules in the same game, then sure it matters. But
Yeah.
the moment you become an entrepreneur or you step out of outside of a certain industry, you're kind of like, does that really matter?
Yeah.
You
And
see it, you kind of just see it a little differently.
you quickly realize it doesn't. And you quickly realize you can play the infinite game. And you quickly realize when you're at this different level, I think, of awareness that there's no winners or losers. Like, are you playing to win or are you playing to keep playing? So for me,
Mm,
I play to keep playing the game. So like
yeah.
a new level that I achieve within myself of growth. It's not even financial anymore. It's like, what am I capable of? What am I capable of expanding to? And in some cases, it used to be a level of financial achievement. And it was hard because beginning of my um, company, like we were landing these huge deals, and that would really feed my ego. And I felt
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm like the rainmaker here. Like this is so great. And now I've been very humbled in that I'm working with very small clients with very small budgets, but I'm really fulfilled with the work that I'm doing and the people that I work with. So I'm not all caught
Mm,
up in all the other stuff.
yeah. You've mentioned several times doing some inner work in the last year. What does that involve? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. And so like I said before, I like my hand in everything. So some of my inner work has been through plant medicine and healing journeys in Costa Rica, sitting with ayahuasca and psilocybin. Other healing journeys have been through breath work and sound meditation. I have a set of sound bowls that I play every morning for myself. And it was interesting because I'm in grad school and my degree will be a master's of consciousness in action, which is kind of like me already. Like I feel like I'm consciousness in action. But in the program, we had to write about a commitment that we've made to ourselves to really connect with ourselves first before we do anything in our day. And so mine is playing my sound bowls. But as I've evolved with this practice, like my relationship with the bowls has evolved and there's an energetic exchange. It's almost like they are waiting for me to play them in the morning as much as I'm waiting and anticipating to play them. So there's a really beautiful reciprocal energetic exchange between it. And it's been deeply healing. For the longest time, my sound bowls that were an investment just sat in the back of a closet. Now that
Mm,
I'm in my house that I rebuilt, like they're all spread out, and that's something I can do in the morning. I do a lot of journaling, intention setting, gratitude practice, reading, writing, reflecting. It sounds like a lot, but I mean, it could take 15 minutes and then I'm set for my day.
yeah. Is it, as you currently reflect on it, is it equally weighted in terms of time and, investment and return on investment? Or is there one thing that you're like, this has moved the needle the most for me?
I think coaching, having a coach, like that was the first step I took in my healing journey was
Mm,
in 2020, I had a big dark night of the soul moment. I was here in lockdown in New Jersey. I used to travel and like suppress and drink my way out of all my feelings. And so when I couldn't do that anymore and I had to sit here and face myself, that's when I was like, something's got to give. This is not working anymore. I'm not happy despite having it all. Like I'm miserable.
yeah.
Um, and that's when I was introduced to a coach. It was not really on my radar at the time, like at all. And so investing and working with Angie, who I still work with now, was a game changer as an initial step. And then from there, it was like exploring different conscious leadership communities and groups and, group coaching versus individual and just really like, I think hands down, I would say coaching for me was a game changer. That's also why I do it now because I just love
Yeah.
it so much and I know how impactful it can be.
What in particular was it, seeing something in a new way? Was it practical steps that you didn't
Yeah, I
have
think
as tools?
I think coaches can challenge you and elevate your conversation and your level of thinking. When
Mm,
you're working with a really good coach who like they're not giving you the answers. It's all you. You have everything you need already inside of you. And so it's about bringing more of that to the surface. And sometimes it's so buried. So for me, it was buried in probably the bottom of my pinky toe. It was so buried I couldn't even feel my essence, right? And so
Yeah.
through the work, it feels like chipping away at all those hardened edges and softening and bringing more of my essence up to the surface where everyone can see it and enjoy it. And that's also something I was sharing with a client that I have that I now coach. She gave me kind of her hit list when we first talked of like, I want you to help me with all these things. And that's how I was too with Angie. I'm like, well, here's what we're going to work on. This is the plan. And she's like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, right. Like that's not like we're not going to plan this. There's no plan for any of this. So my client tells me this, and it was such a mirror moment because she had her whole hit list, and I just looked at her, and she's like, I want to fix this, and I want to fix that. I said, I don't actually think there's anything to be fixed. I think
Mm.
our work together is going to be about you reconnecting with your essence and bringing all of the things you already know you carry within you up to the surface so all of us can see it and experience it. That's it.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
not about bearing all that because you work in this male dominated environment or that or whatever. It's really like a strengthening your connection with yourself. So that's what
Wow.
coaching is for me.
I love that. Yeah, I had a dark night of the soul a few years ago as well. And in the middle of, for me, it turned into anxiety and panic. That
Mhm.
was how it kind of manifested for me. For others might be depression or anger or
Yeah.
whatever. But I remember sitting there at this exact desk and I had three laptops open. On one screen, I had psychologists that I was researching. On another, I had betterhelp.com, another
Mhm.
was a retreat center out of
Yeah.
Tennessee. And I was just trying to figure out how do I fix myself. And then sorry, we got interrupted by life. My kids just interrupted. So on the third screen, I had the retreat center, or whatever. And what was so interesting, I was sitting there looking and just asking myself, what do I need right now? And I really felt like this inner voice emerged. It caught me off guard, and it said, "There's nothing wrong with you except the belief that there's something wrong with you."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it almost like paralyzed me as much as it set me free because I knew it was true to the core of my essence.
Yeah.
But I never considered that. The
Yeah.
only thing that's wrong with me, and I'm not saying this for everybody, like this is not doctor's advice if you're going through,
Yeah.
but for me, I had to sit with that feeling. Is that true? Is the only thing wrong with me that I have had this deeply held belief for a long time that something's
Yeah.
wrong with me? And it's stemming from that search to fix, to fix, to fix instead of to connect. Right.
Yeah, no, totally. Self-love and compassion, that came through in one of my first plant medicine journeys. And that's a theme that has stuck with me and something that I've been integrating and deepening and working on. I contributed to another book called Emerge with Self-Love that just came out. And my chapter is all about my relationship with self-love.
Well, that sounds interesting. Can you elaborate? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the chapter that I shared was called The Journey is the Way, and it was about my first ayahuasca experience in Peru in 2022. And that's when the medicine came through for me and said, there's nothing for you to do. The weight of the world is not yours to carry. It's okay to rest and just more self-love and compassion. Like those were the themes. And then after that, I was like, what does she mean by this? Like, what the heck? And it's taken a while to integrate because it's all fine for someone to tell you, "Oh, just self-love." Like, "Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Well, don't you think I would be doing that if it was that easy?" But it really is a practice that evolves, and it's a lot of mindset work and, rewiring neural pathways and talking to yourself from a different level of energy. And, like you said, you had that inner voice that kind of called you forward.
Yeah.
That's it, like, really being able to tap more into that and to listen when your inner voice is actually showing up, like, what
Mm.
is it saying and what is it not saying sometimes?
Mm. Yeah. So I'm curious if someone's sitting there listening and maybe they resonate with the plant medicine and all that stuff, or maybe they don't, but they do resonate with I feel blocked. Maybe, the description you gave of my essence is all the way down buried in my pinky toe,
Mhm.
What encouragement, what advice would you give to start unlayering some of that stuff to uncover that essence of who you really are again?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I gave my client, recently was to write 50 things that she loved about herself,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't even know if there's 50 things. I said, yeah, you're right. There's probably a few hundred. So start with 50 and let me know how you go and let me know how you feel. And let me
Yeah.
know if you see themes in what you're seeing. And, it starts with that. It's very simple. Like if you've ever thought and zoomed out, what are the things that you love about yourself? Write a little list. And you know what? There's a lot more of the world that shows itself to you by way of earth angels. So I often pray in my morning practice and I always say, please give me clear, direct guidance by way of earth angels. And I want you to be direct. I want to hear it. I want to
Mm.
see it. I want to feel it in my day to day, not like send a hummingbird to my window and then I know that I'm on the right path. Some people
Hmm.
like signs. I
Yeah.
don't do signs. I do like clear shit. And so for me, that shows up. I kid you not, every single day I will get a text message from a random person, someone in my DMs, somebody messaging me on LinkedIn, a call. I'll talk to a candidate that will reaffirm whatever it is that something about me, that what I'm doing in the world is impactful or whatever.
Yeah.
And that then contributes to the things that I love about myself. All
Mm.
of that is like so affirming for me. And it could even be as simple as that, like
Yeah.
keeping a happy file on yourself. If you can't come up with your list of 50 things, then
Yeah.
just wait for the universe to tell you, because it will tell you and then you can screenshot it and keep a little file on your phone of all the goodness and all the good things that people say about you.
I love that. I mean, we definitely know from by the way, I'm with you in a lot of this. I'm always speaking to the person that may not have a footing in some of the things we're talking about, but I do know, it's evident in neuroscience and in just how the brain works that it finds what it's looking for,
Mhm.
right? It finds what it's looking for. So if you're always looking for what's wrong, you will find plenty of evidence and
Yeah.
you'll be conveniently blind to the contrary evidence, to things that are going right. And so the same thing about ourselves. If all I'm thinking about is what's wrong with me, what's broken with me, we live now in a world in our mind, everything's wrong, everything is broken. There's nothing to be confident in, there's nothing to be excited about. But the practice you gave starts making us look for something else
Mhm.
that has been there the whole time. We just haven't seen it, right?
Right.
And that has a powerful effect. I mean, I saw this in the business world. There's a large national food chain, restaurant chain that I was speaking to, and I've spoken to their nationally, and I've spoken to a bunch of their regional conferences. And I started to pick up this theme that they all thought everything was going wrong all the time. And so
Mhm.
at the beginning of my talk, I said, "Hey, we're gonna do something weird. I want you to spend 5 minutes, and I want you to write down everything that's currently going right in your business."
Yeah.
Everyone just sat there, pen on paper, looking at me like nothing coming to mind. And I said, "I know it feels like nothing's coming to mind, but I'm going to sit here until you've got some things on that page." And I just
Yeah.
started giving examples. Did you make a good hire? Do you have a part of the business that's finally seeing traction? And all of a sudden, a few jots going down. And then 3 minutes later, they're turning the page over because they're
Yeah.
writing more stuff, writing more stuff. And I said, "How do you feel right now?"
Yeah.
And they said, I feel completely different about the state of my business now versus 5 minutes ago."
Yeah. Totally. And
That's
it's
a
so powerful.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
If 5 minutes ago you're operating from a place of "We suck, we're not doing great," 5 minutes later, no facts have changed, and you're going, "Actually, I'm kinda proud of the dang thing that we've done over the last few years, and I still got the same issues, but I'm motivated now
Yeah.
and encouraged that we can go solve them," you know? So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it to me instead of the business, you're doing it to me personally, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where does that lead us? Like some people say, but who cares how I feel about myself? What's the utility in
Yeah.
that? Like, what does
Yeah.
that actually, in your mind, what does that actually affect if we start changing the way we think and feel about ourselves?
Well, I think the most important relationship that you have in life is the one that you have with yourself first. And that all of the other relationships that you have will be a reflection back on that one. So if you
Mm,
have no boundaries with yourself, if you don't have any discipline, you don't keep promises to yourself, you're constantly bad mouthing yourself, all of that is going to manifest in a multitude of ways in the other relationships that you have.
mm,
Some people may say the most important relationship is the one they have with God. I also believe that is an important relationship, but in the reality and the world that we live in right here on earth and our humanness, like you are your own greatest teacher. You carry the
mm.
wisdom, you have the intuition, you have that inner voice. And so for some people, that might feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Do you believe it's if someone's like, I don't hear that. I don't hear that inner voice. I don't hear that wisdom.
Mm.
Is it possible we're too busy? Is it possible we never stop and even get quiet enough to ask for that guidance?
Yeah, I do think it's possible. And I think that in some cases, we live in a society in which we're so conditioned for the negative and
Mm,
for the bad news and for all the things that happen all the time that aren't great that we're exposed to. Like that can make it a really tough environment to have a little bit of silence and actually try and see the good. And so I work on this with my son a little bit. He's in 4th grade and I'm always just like, how was your day? I'm like, what do you like? PE. I'm like, okay, tell me something good. Tell me
yeah.
one good thing. What was one good thing that happened today? What was your favorite part of your day? And then I get a little bit more out of him. Even when he's spiraling about something, it's always like, all right, let's pause for a minute. Let's take a breath. Tell me one good thing. It works with clients too, like not even coaching clients. I
Yeah.
work on this with recruiting clients, before we start talking doom and gloom about this candidate and that, like, tell me something good.
Hmm. Yeah. I start every coaching call with good news.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone. I'm like, I'm sure we'll talk about challenges. I'm sure we'll talk about
Yeah.
issues, but like, can we at least start with something that's going right? And I broaden it. It can be personal or professional.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'll
totally.
let you pick, but we're going to start with something that we can celebrate, that we can know is going in the right direction. I've often thought about my experience I don't know if it's
Mhm.
universally true, but my experience of my inner voice is that it's the one voice in my life that refuses to yell.
Mm.
It just does. It's like there's all these urgent, loud voices, the needs of the moment, the impatience of myself or whatever. But wisdom is like that one that's like, I refuse to yell. And I've noticed like there's certain communicators that if the room is noisy, they don't match that. They
Mhm.
actually either will wait or will keep talking in a quiet voice until everyone notices, hey, we can't hear him and the room quiets down.
Yeah.
And my
I
inner
like
voice has kind of felt that way where it's like, I'm not gonna raise my voice to the noise. You're gonna have to quiet the noise till you can finally hear my voice.
I really like that. That's so different for me because my inner voice was a gnarly yelling at me old man all the time. Like,
Interesting.
you're not good enough. Oh my gosh, you're lazy. Get up. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Like constantly badgering me.
Well, that's
And
the inner critic. Maybe I didn't s
totally
The inner
inner
critic
critic.
is loud as crap.
There wasn't ever like peace. There wasn't ever that like more peaceful wisdom until now that I've been in my healing journey.
Yes.
Now my inner voice sounds like my sweetest best friend ever. That's
Mhm.
always like got me and supportive, and there's no shoulds or shouldn'ts. There's support and no judgment, Like I was
Yeah.
thinking recently, I had a lot to do a couple weekends ago. The old me would be like, well, you better do all the stuff you got to do. Like you're so busy. Don't take a rest. But the new inner me was like, you deserve some rest. You'll
Mm.
catch up on it when you catch up on it. No guilt, no blame, no shame. Get your rest and then you'll be even better when you come back to do all the work that you need to do. But it
Yeah.
wasn't like that for a while. It used to be like crazy inner critic yelling all the time.
And you'd have to explain it to yourself, you'd have to explain it to others, justify it,
Yeah, or be
all
like
that
you're a
stuff.
loser. You're not how can you not work 24/7? Are you crazy? Like
Yeah.
who do you think you are?
Yeah, I love it. All right, so this has been super fascinating. I also wanna know, just so that our audience, in case they're really resonating and connecting with you, what are the multiple things you got going on, and what are the ways that they can reach out to you if that's a need they have?
Yeah, awesome. So I still do recruiting. You can find us at .connectllc.com. I also do coaching with leaders, heads of people, entrepreneurs. I have a range of different people who resonate with my approach to conscious leadership. You can find more about that on domfarnan.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, same thing, Dom Farnan, and then I'm on Instagram at I am Dom Farnan.
Awesome. Well, Dom, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your story with us. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Founders, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and hop into our monthly founder email so we can ensure you stay on the edge of peak performance and massive business results.